Welcome to Song Trooping. I'm Jim, and I'm joined by my friend Ken Pobo. Ken, welcome.
Hi, Jim. Nice to be back again.
And we are going to talk today about Peggy Lee, and we're going to focus on late 1960s into the 1970s for the most part in the long career of Peggy Lee. Ken, you told me that you made a mixed CD, 2 CDs worth of favorite tracks from this period of Peggy Lee's career. I'm going to hand over the mic to you and have you kind of take us through some of your favorites.
Well, I guess we may as well start with my favorite album that I know of by her from 1975. It's called Mirrors. And most of the songs on the Mirrors album are Leiber and Stoller songs. In fact, Leiber and Stoller helped bring her back in 1969 with a very famous song called Is That All There Is, which is an absolutely fabulous record, a great recording by Peggy Lee. And so in the mid 70s, she did a whole album of Leiber and Stoller songs called Mirrors. You've got the picture up on the screen for people to look at now. And while it helps to see that, I wish you could see it in person to actually see the album, because it looks almost like you're looking into a mirror because the coloring is silver. And as you look at the album cover, instead of, because it's a mirror, you expect to see your face, but you've got Peggy Lee's face looking at you instead. I'm not sure what that says, but kind of just an interesting way that cover hits me there as well. But it was a failure. And when I say failure, I'm talking commercially. I'm not talking about, anything artistically, which I think it's a terrific album. But for some reason, it did not bring her back. I read in a biography of her that when Mirrors came out and she was touring and kind of in support of it, she would sing some tracks from it and wouldn't get much of an audience reaction. And for her, that was a big deal because, she put these shows together and I don't think she was used to having people go kind of scratch their heads like, what was that? But, I mean, artists have to take some chances sometimes. And I think she did that, but quite successfully on Mirrors, even if it didn't sell very well.
Did she have any chart success with singles from this album?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
One little side note, I love Procol Harum. One of their later albums is called Procol's Ninth, and they do Leiber and Stoller. I think Leiber and Stoller might have produced some or all of that album. And in the liner notes, they mentioned this Peggy Lee album that she was working on Leiber Stoller songs. So somehow it influenced Procol Harum to work with Leiber and Stoller. I think I got that story right. You never would have put those two things together.
That is very interesting. You mean Procol heard the Mirrors album and that made them want to work?
Something like that. Yeah, I'd have to double check the liner notes, but I'm going to do a review of that album shortly, so I will double check that. But yeah, there was a connection there.
Huh, I didn't know. Yeah. That's cool.
It might have been that they were working in the same studio at the same time or something, but then somehow they ended up working with Leiber and Stoller, and they did 1 or 2 Leiber and Stoller songs on that album. But anyway, this is about Peggy Lee. So what songs from this album did you feature?
Well, I like everything. I mean, it's almost hard to choose except one that just stands so far. It's in my top 10 of all time. If I were to make a list of my top 10 songs that I love of all time.
By anybody?
By anybody. Anybody. There's one track off the Mirrors album that would make that top 10 list, and it's called Longings for a Simpler Time. And if you haven't heard it, Jim, you really need to go.
I will dial it up.
Go listen to it. And it's brilliant in some ways. I don't want to spoil. All right, here's spoiler alert here. You listen to this song, and as she's singing it, kind of to the background of a very kind of gentle kind of piano, the images are all about the old days. And the old days were always, they're described in all these kind of loving ways. It was, oh, you know, all the things about the past were kind of rose-colored glasses there, until you get to the last line. And the last line of the song is, "We're longing for a simpler time that never was." And that line at the end suddenly takes all that nostalgia, and it's like recontextualizes it in what we love about the past is something that was an illusion. You know, we thought it was this, but it never was. And she just, you got to hear the way she delivers that line. I mean, that's one thing I will say about Peggy Lee. Well, I could say a whole lot of things, obviously, but I think I could say this a lot about Frank Sinatra as well. These people were not just singers, they were stylists.
Yes.
You know, when you sing, when Peggy Lee sings, and it's funny, when she would often perform, you know, she would stand there almost like, not like a mannequin exactly, but kind of very still and making eye contact, and almost like she's in your living room delivering a very personal kind of message to you. And I find that kind of, you have to listen. I'm not, well, I'm kind of, what am I doing? Sounding like a fan here or something, but
it's okay.
well, I would do that. I can't see you because my cats keep blocking you.
The cats
but-
are Peggy Lee fans too.
Yeah, well, they are for right now, I guess. But you know, you get the feeling of this intimacy when she sings. And she did more with understatement. You know, I don't want to get on my high horse here, but it seems like so often, you know, people have to shout and scream and be all sorts of loud, and, you know, that gets the song or the experience across. Peggy Lee goes the opposite direction. And if you don't listen closely, you're missing it.
Yeah, it's all about interpretation. A great singer is a great interpreter of other people's songs. Like they kind of get inside it, they make it their own. They they shed new light on it too. I mean, and that's what I'm hearing from you, is she was really good at that.
Duke Ellington referred to her as, quote, the queen.
Mhm.
And I think it was just kind of, well, they had a lot of mutual self-respect there as well. And she was known, like in the 40s and 50s, as being kind of a singer associated with swing. And
Didn't she work with Benny Goodman? Wasn't she?
no, that was where she got famous.
Right.
Was
right.
working with Benny. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you know, so she learned to sing and to swing early on, right from the get-go there. And it's funny though, even as she's swinging, she's not needing to belt. You know, she can swing, but she can still be very, there's something sub rosa in the way that she does it.
Now I'm showing here some of the albums where you pulled tracks for your mix CDs. Any of these you want to feature? Next?
Well, I just mentioned Mirrors, and particularly that song from Mirrors.
Right.
I mean, we could have a whole show just having me talk about the Mirrors album, and I don't really want to do that. Just for me, that is a real high point in all sorts of ways.
And yet it was a commercial flop.
All of these were. You've got 4 albums up there, and I mean she had her fans and people like that followed her career, and I'm sure she had some sales from that. But you know, by this time in her career, she wasn't, you know, the hot young thing. She wasn't a, quote, rock and roller or anything quite like that. So there wasn't the same kind of place for her that way, but that didn't stop her from continuing to record and put out, you know, for a while there, almost like an album a year, sometimes even more. And she often, Sinatra did this too. I guess some of these older generation singers felt they had to try to keep being at least as contemporary as they can. So if you look at the album tracks on like the Norma Dolores album, the Natural Woman album in particular, a lot of them have songs that are contemporary at the time, or at least done in the last few years, or by writers that were having hit songs at that time, not just the older kind of songs as well. Although she did those too. She kind of mixed and matched and brought those together.
Yeah, I mean, she's doing on Natural Woman, she's doing Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, Lean on Me, the Bill Withers.
No,
No, that's not the Bill Withers. I'm
same
sorry.
title, but not the same song.
Right, not the same song.
But Can I Change My Mind was a big hit for Tyrone Davis in 1969.
And yet there's a Billie Holiday tune on
And
here.
yeah,
But-
she adored Billie Holiday.
But you see on side 2 here, you got Sly and the Family Stone song, Everyday People, and there's Randy Newman, the Blood, Sweat and Tears
Yeah.
song, Spinning Wheel. So yeah, she was kind of updating her catalog with some newer stuff.
Well, I guess, to be still considered contemporary and not just a singer locked in the past, there was probably a desire to show that, yeah, I can do these songs too, but I can do them my way. I can make them my own.
So for someone who's maybe interested in exploring this period of Peggy's career, what would be, let's say, like 5 to 10 songs that you would think they should start with?
Well, I already mentioned Longings for a Simpler Time. Get the song tracks up on Norma Dolores Egstrom. By the way, that's her. That's her real name.
Ah,
She grew up, she's from she's gone now, of course. In fact, I think this is her 100th birthday year. I'm not certain about that, but I think it is, but she grew up in North Dakota, and there's the map on the back in Jamestown, that right there in North Dakota. And that's where she grew up here. And it's the same thing. If you look at the song list, you've got contemporary songs of the time, but then you've got standards like I'll Be Seeing You. She does a lovely version of that, by the way. Or The More I See You, those are more known kind of standards. But at the same time, you've got A Song for You, and you've got Superstar, which was a very big hit for the Carpenters. So she's again kind of joining those kind of things together. In my ideal list of Peggy Lee songs from this time period, the last one on the first side I would definitely include. Again, it's so well sung and so subtle. It's called It Takes Too Long to Learn to Live Alone. That's another one of my favorites by her. Love
Nice.
Song, the first one. That's also very well done. A lot of people have covered that song. I have a version of it by Dionne Warwick that I like a lot too.
and here's side 2.
Yeah, but
Nice.
see that there's Superstar,
Mhm.
a contemporary of its time song, and the next one is Just for a Thrill, Louis Armstrong.
Mhm.
And there is no separation. It's like, yeah, we're just going to kind of mix these all together. Oh, that's another song I love. And it was a contemporary song called Someone Who Cares. She does an absolute lovely version of that one too.
Now, if we turn to this Let's Love album, any recommendations from this one?
The title track in particular, which is a McCartney song. And it may seem like, well, there's the Odd Couple, one of the Beatles and Peggy Lee, but not really the Odd Couple at all. I think Paul, when he was growing up, his father had music on in the house a lot, and it was this kind of stuff. And so I think he grew up really admiring what she was as a vocalist. And even, I know we're talking about Peggy Lee, but to just go one step further with McCartney here for a little bit, he wrote the song Those Were the Days for Mary Hopkin. I think he wrote that, didn't he? I know he produced it.
I think so. And then here's side 2.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. Anyways, he produced that for Mary Hopkin. And if you listen to the Mary Hopkin, the first album she did was called Postcard, which he did produce. There's some old classic standards that he had her do, and I think Mary Hopkin may not have been so happy with all of those. Early on, he had her do Que Sera, Sera. This was not part of the rock era, so to speak. But I think for Paul, these were things that he knew intimately just from growing up. And so I think to work with Peggy Lee and to write a song that she would do, and that's the name of the album, I think that was a pretty big moment.
So this was 1974 and was on Atlantic.
Yeah.
It seems like she was switching labels though, because Mirrors is on A&M. That's from 75.
She had been on Capitol, and then she kind of did these one-offs. The last Capitol was the Norma Dolores Egstrom album.
And The Natural Woman was on Capitol.
Right.
All right. Any other favorite tracks you want to recommend to us for people who want to explore?
Well, you don't have it in the listing of the 4 albums there, but if you would go and get a 5th album, the Is That All There Is album is really worth hearing too. There's more Randy Newman on that one too, and the song in 1969, Is That All There Is, totally fabulous, really brought her back. It's almost spoken. It's almost a recitational more than it is, quote, a song, except for the chorus. You know the song, don't you?
Yes, I have this album.
Yeah. And I can remember, I mean, again, that was the kind of late summer, fall of 1969. You have no idea how different that was for what was on the radio at that time. Yeah, look at that,
Yep.
And, I can remember, being 14, 15 years old, and that would come on the radio and like, what is this? This is not Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater, it's this woman. It sounds like she's, talking to you. And by the way, interesting, she said she had to fight to get that song released. The, execs up there in Capitol said, we just don't see this as being a hit at all. And so we're not going to release it. But they wanted her to do a TV show she wasn't hot on doing. And she said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll do that show, but you release that song. And they said, deal. And that's how we got it. And then it became this huge hit.
Is That All There Is?
Yeah.
From the forthcoming production, International Wrestling Match, whatever that is.
That I don't know a thing about.
Well,
but whatever it was written for, once you hear her do it, everything else is frankly fairly irrelevant anyways, But you can see the writers, Lieber and Stoller, again.
Yes, they're on there. Randy Newman's on here, Neil Diamond, George Harrison.
But if you look at those bottom tracks, like on the other side there, Don't Smoke in Bed, that's a re-recording. She had originally done that, God, I can't remember the year, but at least a couple decades before. It was kind of a classic, but she redid it for this particular album. It's another one I love by her, is that song.
Cool. Well, this is great. It's a nice introduction to Peggy Lee. Ken, if you want to share the tracks on your mix CDs, I can just build a list and put it in the show description. Just email it to me and I'll add it when we put the video up.
I can email you those.
Okay. I might even be able to assemble a YouTube playlist of most of those songs. So we'll try to share as many as we can.
Yeah, cool. Will do.
So just don't ignore Peggy Lee's 60s and 70s work. There's a lot of gems in there, as we've just heard about.
Yeah, and especially don't ignore Mirrors.
Mirrors, and maybe we'll do a whole show eventually on that album. I'll give it a couple listens, and I would love to do a deep dive into that.
Oh, yeah, me too. Fine with me. Thanks,
Ken, for sharing your expertise on Peggy Lee and your fandom. We appreciate it. And folks, if you are fans of this period of Peggy's career, leave a comment, and we'd love to hear what your favorites are. Thanks for tuning in to Song Tripping, and we hope you will subscribe and come back soon. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Bye-bye.